was a friend of mine.
Welcome back to R&B Zoom, where the songs you thought you knew are about to sound completely different. Every beat, every lyric, every unforgettable chorus can hide a story the radio never told you.
Gonna be some sweet sounds coming down.
Tonight, we're opening the vault on 10 of the biggest R&B hits of the 1980s. Songs that topped the charts, filled dance floors, and became part of our lives. But behind the platinum records are murders, lawsuits, addiction, betrayal, obsession, family tragedy, and moments that forever changed music history. By the end of this countdown, you may never hear these classics the same way again.
It sounds like when doves cry.
Number 10, Candy Girl, New Edition, 1983. Five teenagers from the Orchard Park housing projects in Roxbury, Boston, suddenly became America's newest R&B sensation. Candy Girl shot to the top of the R&B charts, audiences screamed their names, and New Edition looked destined to become the next Jackson 5. Bobby Brown, Ralph Tresvant, Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, and Ronnie DeVoe were still children, yet they were already carrying an industry worth millions. From the outside, it looked like every dream had come true. The reality couldn't have been more different. While the group toured across the country performing sold-out shows, they trusted the adults around them to protect their interests. Instead, complicated contracts left the young singers earning almost nothing from the success they had created. According to multiple accounts from the group themselves, after completing a national tour, each member reportedly received a check for only about $187. Imagine being one of the hottest groups in America and returning home with less money than many fans spent attending your concerts. They had become famous almost overnight, yet their financial reality barely changed. Their families realized something was terribly wrong, and the group eventually challenged their management and legal agreements. The dispute became one of the earliest examples of young R&B artists fighting back against unfair contracts. Rather than letting the experience destroy them, New Edition rebuilt their careers. They regained control of their future, launched one of the greatest group legacies in R&B history, and eventually inspired Belle Biv DeVoe, Bobby Brown's solo career, and later Boys to Men. Every time Candy Girl plays today, most people hear innocent teenage romance. Few realize it's also the soundtrack to one of the music industry's most famous stories of exploitation and survival. Number 9, Lover Girl, Teena Marie, 1984. Most people remember Lover Girl as one of the happiest records of the entire decade. The infectious groove, Teena Marie's unmistakable voice, and the joyful energy made it an instant crossover hit. It climbed into the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became the biggest pop success of her career. But the song almost never existed. Before the music reached millions of listeners, Teena Marie found herself trapped in one of the most frustrating battles of her life. Not with another artist, but with the very record label that had discovered her. By the early 1980s, Motown Records had stopped actively promoting Teena Marie's new material. Worse still, the company refused to release her from her contract. Imagine spending years writing songs, recording albums, and developing your sound, only to have your music locked away while you're legally forbidden from recording somewhere else. She wasn't being told she wasn't talented. She simply wasn't being allowed to move forward. Her career had effectively been frozen by paperwork rather than poor sales. Instead of accepting defeat, Teena Marie took Motown to court. It was a bold decision. Motown was one of the most influential labels in American music history, responsible for launching legends like Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, and The Temptations. Few artists had the courage or the resources to challenge the company in court. But Teena believed an artist should never be held under contract while a label refuses to release the music they're creating. The California courts agreed. Her legal victory became known throughout the industry as the Brockert Initiative, named after her legal surname, Mary Christine Brockert. The ruling established an important legal precedent. If a label isn't releasing an artist's work, it can't indefinitely prevent that artist from working elsewhere. That victory changed everything. Teena Marie signed with Epic Records, where she finally had the creative freedom she'd been fighting for. The first major result was Lover Girl, the biggest crossover hit of her career. What sounds like a carefree love song is actually the soundtrack to one of R&B's most significant legal victories. Even artists who came after her benefited from the precedent she helped establish. Every time Lover Girl fills a dance floor, it's also a reminder that sometimes the biggest battles in music aren't fought on stage. They're fought in courtrooms, where one determined artist can change the rules for everyone who follows. Number 8. When Doves Cry, Prince, 1984. There are songs that become legendary because they sound different. Then there are songs that become legendary because they're telling the truth, whether listeners realize it or not. When Prince released When Doves Cry in 1984, radio had never heard anything quite like it. The song had no bass line, an unconventional arrangement, and an emotional intensity that seemed impossible to explain. It spent 5 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and also topped the R&B chart, becoming the defining single from Purple Rain. But behind its groundbreaking sound was a childhood Prince spent trying to escape.
Maybe I'm just too demanding.
Prince rarely explained his music in detail, which only deepened the mystery surrounding him. Yet over the years, he admitted that When Doves Cry was deeply autobiographical. The song reflected the painful relationship between his parents, jazz pianist John Nelson and singer Matty Shaw. Their marriage was marked by constant arguments, emotional instability, and conflict that Prince witnessed as a child. Those experiences left lasting emotional scars, and years later, they became the emotional foundation of one of the greatest songs of the decade. The lyrics weren't simply about a troubled romance. They were about growing up in a home where love and pain often existed side by side. Prince's family life became so difficult that, while still a teenager, he eventually left home. For a period, he lived with the family of Andre Simone, his close friend and future bassist. Music became more than a career. It became his refuge. Instead of allowing those painful memories to define him, Prince transformed them into art that millions of people connected with, even if they never knew the story behind it. Every haunting lyric and every burst of emotion carried pieces of a childhood he rarely spoke about publicly. The brilliance of the song lies in the fact that listeners could feel the pain without needing to know its source. Then came one of the boldest production decisions in pop history. After completing the recording, Prince made a last-minute choice that shocked even his own engineers. He removed the entire bass track. In an era when bass lines drove R&B music, this seemed almost unthinkable. Yet that absence created an unsettling emotional space that made the song even more powerful. It sounded lonely, tense, and vulnerable, perfectly matching the emotional weight of the lyrics. When Doves Cry wasn't just another #1 hit. It was Prince turning childhood trauma into musical genius, proving that sometimes the deepest wounds produce the most unforgettable masterpieces. Number 7, Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, 1983. There are songs that make an artist famous, and then there are songs that change popular culture forever. Billie Jean did both. Released in January 1983 as the second single from Thriller, it spent 7 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the R&B chart, and became the centerpiece of the best-selling album in recording history. The unforgettable bass line, Michael Jackson's whisper-like vocals, and that legendary Motown 25 performance introduced the moonwalk to millions. But behind one of the greatest pop and R&B records ever made was a fear that Michael Jackson admitted was very real. Contrary to popular belief, Billie Jean wasn't written about one specific woman. Michael explained in his autobiography Moonwalk that the song was inspired by years of women claiming he had fathered their children, sending letters, photographs, and accusations that became part of his everyday life as his fame exploded. One woman became so obsessed that she repeatedly insisted Michael was the father of her twins, even though the timeline made that impossible. According to Michael, the harassment escalated to the point where threatening letters and disturbing packages arrived at his home. What many listeners interpreted as fiction was, in reality, drawn from the growing paranoia that accompanied global superstardom. Even after the song was finished, another obstacle appeared. Legendary producer Quincy Jones wasn't convinced it belonged on Thriller. He felt the introduction was too long and even suggested changing the title because he believed people might confuse Billie Jean with tennis star Billie Jean King. Quincy also questioned whether the song was strong enough to become a major single. Michael refused to back down. He believed the record had something special that no one else could hear yet. It became one of the rare moments where the artist trusted his instincts over one of the greatest producers in music history, and history proved him right. Everything that followed became music legend. The Motown 25 performance, the single white glove, the black sequin jacket, the moonwalk that stunned television audiences around the world. Yet beneath all those iconic images was a young man writing about the darker side of fame, the loneliness, suspicion, and constant fear of being falsely accused. Today, Billie Jean is celebrated as one of the greatest songs ever recorded. But every time that famous bass line begins, remember this: you're not just hearing a masterpiece, you're hearing the sound of a superstar turning his deepest anxieties into one of the most unforgettable records in music history. Number 6, Super Freak, Rick James, 1981. When Super Freak exploded onto radio in 1981, Rick James looked unstoppable. The song became one of the defining funk and R&B records of the decade, reaching the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 and climbing to number 3 on the R&B chart. Its unforgettable groove, outrageous personality, and infectious hook made it a party anthem that still fills dance floors today. Years later, MC Hammer would build "You Can't Touch This" around its famous riff, introducing Rick James to an entirely new generation. But while millions celebrated the music, few imagined that the man behind it was slowly losing control of his own life. Rick James had built his reputation on excess. His concerts were wild, his interviews were unpredictable, and he embraced a rock star lifestyle unlike almost anyone else in R&B. Behind the confidence, however, cocaine addiction was tightening its grip. Friends, fellow musicians, and people who worked closely with him later described a man whose substance abuse was becoming increasingly destructive. The fame, the fortune, and the constant attention fed a lifestyle that blurred the line between performance and reality. What looked glamorous on television was becoming dangerous behind closed doors. Then came the scandal, that permanently changed how many people viewed Rick James. In 1991, he was arrested after a woman accused him and his girlfriend of holding her against her will inside his Hollywood Hills home, assaulting her and burning her with the hot end of a crack pipe. While awaiting trial, he faced another assault accusation involving a different woman. In 1993, Rick James was convicted on charges related to the first case and served time in prison. It was one of the most shocking criminal falls from grace in R&B history, transforming one of the decade's biggest hitmakers into a headline for entirely different reasons.
She's a super freak, she's super freak.
What makes the story so unsettling is the contrast between the music and the reality. Super Freak still appears in movies, television shows, commercials, sporting events, and playlists celebrating the best of the 1980s. Most listeners instinctively smile the moment that iconic bass line begins. Yet behind the celebration lies the tragic story of an artist whose extraordinary talent was overshadowed by addiction, criminal convictions, and self-destruction. It serves as a sobering reminder that success doesn't protect anyone from their own decisions. Sometimes the brightest stars cast the darkest shadows, and sometimes the songs that make us dance carry stories we'd rather not hear. Number 5, Nightshift, Commodores, 1985. Some songs celebrate life, others quietly mourn it. And then there are songs like Nightshift, a record so deeply rooted in loss that every note carries the weight of two legends who never lived to hear the tribute. Released in 1985, after Lionel Richie had already left the Commodores, many critics believed the group was finished. Few expected them to produce another major hit. Instead, they released Nightshift, a song that climbed to number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart, reached the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, and earned the Commodores a Grammy Award. Most listeners hear a beautiful melody. What they're really hearing is a farewell to two of the greatest voices R&B has ever known, Marvin Gaye and Jackie Wilson. The story becomes heartbreaking when you understand why Jackie Wilson was included. On September 29, 1975, Wilson was performing his classic hit, Lonely Teardrops, at a Dick Clark Oldies Revue in New Jersey. In the middle of the performance, he suddenly collapsed on stage after suffering a massive heart attack. At first, many people in the audience thought it was part of the act. Some even applauded, believing the dramatic fall had been choreographed. They had no idea they had just witnessed one of the most tragic moments in music history. Wilson survived, but he never truly came back.
Sing your song.
For nearly 9 years, Jackie Wilson remained in a minimally conscious state after severe brain damage caused by lack of oxygen. The man once known as Mr. Excitement, one of the most electrifying performers of the rock and R&B era, never returned to the stage, never recorded another song, and never regained the life he once knew. While fans continued enjoying the music he had already given the world, Wilson spent almost a decade confined to hospitals and nursing facilities. When he finally passed away in January 1984, many people remembered only the date of his death, forgetting that, in many ways, the music world had already lost him years earlier.
Higher and higher, keep it up.
That's what makes Nightshift so powerful. The Commodores weren't simply honoring two artists who had died. They were acknowledging two voices whose absence left a permanent silence in R&B. Marvin Gaye had been shot and killed by his own father just one day before his 45th birthday in April 1984. Jackie Wilson had spent nearly a decade trapped between life and death before finally passing away. The lyrics imagine both men performing together on Heaven's Night Shift, still singing for audiences beyond this world. Every time the chorus plays, it reminds us that legends may leave the stage, but their voices never truly disappear. And perhaps that's the greatest tribute any song has ever given to the artists who came before it. Number 4, Endless Love, Diana Ross and Lionel Richie, 1981.
Every step I make.
There are few songs in music history as universally associated with romance as Endless Love. Weddings, anniversaries, first dances. This song has become the soundtrack to countless love stories. Released in 1981, Diana Ross and Lionel Richie created what would become one of the biggest duets ever recorded. It spent 9 consecutive weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the R&B chart, and became the best-selling single of both artists' careers. The orchestration is beautiful, the vocals are flawless. It sounds like the purest expression of everlasting love, but almost nobody remembers the disturbing story that inspired it. The song wasn't originally written as a standalone love ballad. Lionel Richie composed it for the 1981 film Endless Love, based on Scott Spencer's controversial novel. While the song itself is tender and heartfelt, the movie tells a far darker story. Its central character, David Axelrod, becomes obsessively attached to his teenage girlfriend, Jade. When her parents forbid the relationship, David's response isn't acceptance or heartbreak, it is obsession. In one of the film's most shocking moments, he deliberately sets fire to Jade's family home, believing that creating a crisis will somehow bring them back together. The fire spirals out of control, putting innocent lives at risk and exposing the dangerous consequences of obsession disguised as love. Critics at the time didn't celebrate the film as a romantic masterpiece. Many viewed it as an unsettling portrayal of emotional dependence, manipulation, and destructive fixation. Reviews criticized the relationship between the two young lovers, describing it as unhealthy rather than inspirational. Ironically, while the film received mixed to negative reviews and gradually faded from popular memory, Lionel Richie's title song escaped that context completely. It became a timeless classic played at weddings and celebrations across the world. Most listeners never realized they were embracing a song originally written for a story centered on obsession, arson, and emotional instability. That's the strange power of music. A song can outgrow the story that gave it life. Today, Endless Love remains one of the most beloved romantic duets ever recorded, while the disturbing narrative that inspired it is largely forgotten. Every time those opening notes begin, people think about devotion, commitment, and soulmates. Very few remember that behind one of the greatest love songs of the 1980s lies a film where love crossed the line into dangerous obsession. It's a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful melodies are born from stories far darker than anyone realizes. Number 3, Greatest Love of All, Whitney Houston, 1985. Some performances are so powerful that they erase everything that came before them. That's exactly what happened when Whitney Houston recorded Greatest Love of All. Released in 1985 from her self-titled debut album, the song climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1986 and became one of the defining performances of her legendary career. To millions of people, it was an anthem about confidence, self-worth, and believing in yourself. Teachers played it at graduations. Parents dedicated it to their children. It became one of the most uplifting songs ever recorded. But behind that message lies a story filled with heartbreaking irony.
Give them a sense of...
What many listeners never realized is that Whitney didn't originally record the song. It was first released in 1977 by George Benson for the film The Greatest, a biographical movie about heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali. Benson's version received respectable attention, but it never became the cultural phenomenon the song would later become. Nearly a decade passed before producer Michael Masser believed Whitney Houston's extraordinary voice could unlock the emotion hidden inside the lyrics. He was right. At only 21 years old, Whitney transformed the song into something deeply personal, delivering a vocal performance that many critics still rank among the greatest in popular music history.
I believe the children are.
The tragedy is that the lyrics became almost prophetic. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. Those words inspired millions, yet Whitney's own life became a long struggle against pressures that few people could fully understand. Behind the dazzling performances and worldwide success, she battled intense public scrutiny, personal turmoil, and substance addiction that slowly overshadowed one of the greatest voices ever given to music. Fans watched the headlines without always understanding the emotional weight she carried away from the cameras. Then came February 11, 2012. On the eve of the Grammy Awards, Whitney Houston was found dead in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles. The official investigation concluded that she had accidentally drowned, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. The woman who taught the world that the greatest love begins with loving yourself spent years fighting battles that fame could never solve. Today, when her soaring voice reaches that unforgettable chorus, it still gives people hope. Yet knowing how her story ended makes every note feel different. Greatest Love of All remains one of the most inspiring songs ever recorded, but it also stands as one of the most heartbreaking reminders that even the strongest voices can be carrying unimaginable pain. Number 2, Somebody's Watching Me. Rockwell, 1984. Sometimes the most disturbing story isn't hidden in the lyrics. It's hidden behind the name on the record. In 1984, Somebody's Watching Me exploded onto radio with one of the most recognizable choruses of the decade. The song reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, climbed to number 1 on the R&B chart, and instantly became a pop culture phenomenon. The eerie lyrics about paranoia and being constantly watched felt different from anything else on R&B radio. Then came the chorus. One voice changed everything. Michael Jackson. But here's the part almost nobody knew at the time. The biggest star in the world wasn't the artist behind the hit. The man who recorded the song wasn't actually named Rockwell. His real name was Kennedy William Gordy, the son of Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown Records. Instead of using his famous family name to open doors, Kennedy wanted to prove he could succeed on his own. According to interviews given over the years, he submitted his music under a stage name, deliberately distancing himself from the Gordy legacy. Ironically, the son of the most powerful executive in black music history spent years trying to escape the very advantage everyone assumed he wanted. He didn't want people saying he was successful because of his father. He wanted them talking about the music.
Well, it's the mailman watching me. And I don't...
Then came an extraordinary twist. Michael Jackson and Kennedy had grown up around each other because of their family's close relationship with Motown. When Kennedy asked Michael if he would sing the chorus, Michael agreed. Not because of contracts, not because of business, but because they were friends. Michael recorded the unforgettable hook without asking for a featured credit or demanding a spotlight. His voice became one of the most recognizable parts of the entire song, yet millions of listeners had no idea he wasn't officially credited as a featured artist on the original release. In many ways, Michael's generosity helped launch one of the biggest one-hit wonders in R&B history. But the story becomes even more fascinating when you think about the lyrics. A song about paranoia, suspicion, and constantly feeling watched was recorded by a man desperately trying to hide his own identity from the public. While listeners focused on the mysterious voice singing about invisible eyes, Kennedy Gordy was quietly fighting a different battle, the pressure of living in the shadow of one of the most influential families in music history. Somebody's Watching Me became his biggest success, but it also became the only hit most people ever associated with him. It's one of R&B's greatest ironies. A man who wanted to be recognized for himself ended up making a song where almost everyone remembered someone else's voice first.
'Cause I might open my eyes and find someone standing there.
Number 1, Computer Love. Zap, featuring Roger Troutman, 1985.
I've seen on my computer screen.
Some songs become timeless because they capture a feeling that never goes away. Computer Love did exactly that. Released in 1985 by Zap, featuring Roger Troutman, the song reached the Billboard R&B Top 10 and became one of the most influential records in modern R&B and funk. Long before dating apps, social media, or smartphones, Roger Troutman imagined people searching for love through technology. It sounded futuristic in 1985. Today, it feels almost prophetic. The talkbox, the silky harmonies, and Roger's unmistakable voice created a masterpiece that would later be sampled and celebrated by artists ranging from Tupac to Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and countless others. But behind this beautiful song was a family story that ended in unimaginable tragedy. Zap wasn't simply a band, it was a family. Roger Troutman built the group alongside his brothers, including Larry Troutman, and together they transformed funk music forever. Roger's mastery of the talkbox made his voice sound almost supernatural, influencing generations of musicians who followed. Behind the scenes, however, years of business pressure, financial disagreements, and personal tensions slowly began to strain relationships within the Troutman family. Like many successful family businesses, the closer everyone worked together, the harder it became to separate business decisions from personal emotions. Those unresolved conflicts quietly grew for years, hidden from fans who only saw the smiles on stage. Then came April 25th, 1999, a day that still shocks the music world. Roger arrived outside the family's recording studio in Dayton, Ohio, when he was suddenly shot multiple times. He was rushed to the hospital but did not survive. Investigators quickly discovered the unimaginable truth. The shooter was Larry Troutman, Roger's own brother. After the shooting, Larry returned to his vehicle and took his own life before police could question him. The exact motive has never been fully established. Reports have pointed to financial disputes, disagreements over business matters, and years of unresolved family conflict. But no definitive explanation has ever answered the question everyone still asks: why? That unanswered question is what makes Computer Love so haunting today. Every lyric speaks about connection, companionship, and reaching another human being. Yet the man who gave the world those words lost his life at the hands of someone he had trusted for decades. The same family that built one of the greatest funk groups in history also witnessed one of its most heartbreaking endings. Every time Roger's talkbox begins singing those unforgettable opening lines, you're hearing more than an R&B classic. You're hearing the voice of a musical genius whose life ended in a tragedy that no fan, and perhaps no member of his own family, ever saw coming.
My computer well.